Men don't lose women because they're not good enough. They lose them because they are too predictable. Here's the ugly truth. The harder men try, the faster they get ignored. You text first. You plan the date. You remember her dog's name. And then she vanishes, while chasing the guy who barely said a word. Feels unfair, right? But this is the pain men never say out loud. Why does effort get punished and indifference rewarded? Why do women spiral over the man who gives nothing, while the man who gives everything gets treated like an afterthought? Most men think it's about attraction. Wrong. It's about control. Women don't spiral over certainty. They spiral over ambiguity, not because they want chaos, but because biology tricks them into chasing it. And here's where the scam comes in. Romance is sold as love, but functions like addiction. The less stable he is, the more her nervous system locks on. Not because he's special, but because her brain can't stand the cliffhanger he creates. So the question isn't, how do I make her like me? The real question is, how do I stop being drained by a system designed to keep men performing while women keep gambling? Because until men see the spiral for what it is, they will keep mistaking obsession for love and chaos for chemistry. Stay with me. What you'll hear next will change the way you see dating forever. Men keep asking, why do women ignore the man who gives everything, but spiral over the one who gives nothing? The answer is brutal. She doesn't spiral over devotion. She spirals over disruption. Not clarity, but confusion. Not love, but lack. And the trap is hidden in plain sight. Picture this. One guy remembers her dog's name, texts good morning, and plans the restaurant she mentioned. She thanks him politely, then vanishes. Meanwhile, another guy replies LOL instead of haha, disappears for 2 days, and suddenly she's rereading that single word like it's encrypted military intel. That's not romance. That's an addiction. Most men think effort equals attraction. They believe more attention should equal more reward. But what nobody tells them is this: predictability kills obsession. Consistency feels safe, but safety doesn't trigger pursuit. It ends the chase. Helen Fisher found that romantic love activates the same brain circuits as cocaine. And just like cocaine, it's not the dose that hooks you. It's the crash and the craving that follow. That's why she spirals over the man who gives less. His silence creates space. Her nervous system fills that space with imagination, projection, paranoia. She's not lying awake replaying the sweet compliments from the good guy. She's awake decoding a single K. She's not chasing the man himself. She's chasing the cliffhanger. And here's the scam. Romance markets itself as intimacy, but functions like a slot machine. Reward. Silence. Reward again. The psychology term? Intermittent reinforcement. It's the same trick casinos use. Same reason Tinder works. She's not in love. She's stuck in a loop. And men who think they're competing on looks, status, or effort are blind. The real currency is uncertainty. That's why the man who forgot her birthday often feels more powerful than the one who remembered it. Not because he's better, but because his inconsistency makes her nervous system panic. Most men think women choose romance. The truth is, they're just gambling for resolution. Here's what you need to practice this week. Stop mistaking obsession for proof of value. If she spirals, it's not about your greatness. It's about her biology. Observe it. Don't feed it. Don't chase validation in her spiral. Because the moment you see it for what it is, the system begins to lose power over you. Here's what most men miss. Women don't spiral over the man who's clear. They spiral over the man who's unreadable. Not devotion, but ambiguity. Not consistency, but chaos. That's the magnetic field pulling her in. Imagine this. One guy texts, "Dinner at 7, see you then." Straightforward, respectful. She smiles, then forgets it. Another guy sends, "Maybe later," and vanishes. She spends the night checking his Instagram story like it's a crime scene. One gives certainty, the other gives mystery. Which one lingers longer in her head? Always the second. Most men think it's unfair. They think women are choosing better men. Wrong. They're not choosing better. They're choosing confusion. And confusion is stickier than clarity. Carl Jung called this projection. She isn't reacting to the man, but to the image her mind has created. He says little, she fills in the blanks. He's not fascinating. He's just silent enough for her imagination to do the heavy lifting. The less she knows, the more she invests. That's why a man eating cereal at 2 a.m. looks like a deep, brooding genius in her fantasy. He's not profound, he's just absent. But absence is gasoline for her nervous system. She projects complexity where there is none. And once the projection starts, reality can't compete. Now here's the scam exposed. Men who give effort, planning dates, showing care, providing clarity, become background noise. Men who give gaps become psychological puzzles. Not love, not connection, but unfinished business. And unfinished business is what keeps her awake. That's not romance. That's a nervous system glitch dressed as desire. And here's the danger. Every spiral ends in collapse. 1 week she's texting like he's her soulmate. 3 days later she blocks him without warning. That's not madness. That's withdrawal. Obsession flips to resentment the moment the projection breaks. Men who mistake this cycle for victory are setting themselves up to be disposable. Here's what you need to practice this week. Stop competing for her spiral. Stop thinking you lost to a better man. You lost to ambiguity, not superiority. Your task is simple. Observe when she projects, and refuse to play along. Don't perform for the fantasy. Stay real. Stay grounded. Because the man who refuses to fuel projection is the only one who wins when the spiral burns out. Most men think romance runs on emotions. The truth? Romance runs on chemistry. Not the chemistry of flowers and fireworks, but the raw circuitry of dopamine. Dopamine doesn't reward safety. It rewards unpredictability. That's why her body reacts harder to mixed signals than to steady devotion. Think about the cycle. One day he texts her all night. The next, silence. 2 days later, a quick "hey" at midnight. Suddenly she's wide awake, rereading that tiny message. She's not chasing him. She's chasing the pattern break. That sudden high, followed by a low. It's the same mechanism that hooks gamblers on slot machines. Helen Fisher's research showed romantic love lights up the same brain regions as cocaine. And just like cocaine, it's not the dose that matters. It's the crash, the craving, the unpredictable timing. That's why she checks her phone every 5 minutes, not for love, but for the next dopamine spike. Romance isn't intimacy. It's engineered addiction. Now add trauma into the equation. If she grew up with chaos, inconsistency feels like home. A man who pulls away doesn't scare her. He soothes her, not because it feels good, but because it feels familiar. That's not chemistry. That's trauma bonding in disguise. Most men confuse this cycle for passion. In reality, it's repetition of old wounds. Picture this. She tells her friend, He must be deep. He's so mysterious. Meanwhile, he's eating cold pizza at 3 a.m., scrolling Reddit. He's not profound. He's just quiet. But her nervous system can't tolerate the silence, so it invents depth. She spirals, not because of who he is, but because of what her brain can't resolve. And here's the scam exposed again. The system rewards inconsistency and punishes stability. Men who offer clarity get sidelined. Men who offer chaos get remembered. But obsession always flips. 1 week she swears he's the one. The next, she blocks him with nuclear force. That's not romance. That's withdrawal. Here's what you needed to practice this week. Recognize when you're being used as a dopamine trigger. Don't mistake her constant checking, her spirals, her paranoia for love. That's not desire. It's dependency. And the man who confuses addiction with affection is already trapped. Your practice is to break the cycle. Be consistent, not chaotic. Stability is your weapon. Here's the hard truth. If romance is a casino, most men are playing with borrowed chips. They think the way to win is to copy the bad boy's moves. Delayed replies, cold indifference, pulling away. But imitating chaos doesn't make you powerful. It only makes you another dealer in the same game. And dealers never win. The house always does. The real strategy isn't copying tricks. It's refusing to play the role of the drug and becoming the antidote. A man who feeds the spiral is nothing more than her slot machine. But a man who anchors himself becomes her gravity. He doesn't bend when she spirals. He doesn't panic when she withdraws. He holds steady, and that stillness breaks the loop. Look at the difference. One man replies instantly, floods her with 10 messages when she goes silent, and begs for answers. He thinks he's proving care. In reality, he's proving weakness. Another man replies only when he chooses, with clarity, without panic. She feels the contrast immediately, not indifference. Direction, not reaction. Leadership. Carl Jung once said, "We project our unconscious onto others." That's exactly what happens inside the spiral. She doesn't see the man. She sees her projection of him. The fatal mistake men make is trying to perform for that projection. They play the brooding genius, the tragic poet, the cold heartbreaker. But every projection collapses, and when it does, obsession turns into resentment. The antidote is authenticity, not oversharing, not emotional dumping, just clean reality. A simple line, I move slow. I'm not here to play games. If you want chaos, find someone else. That kind of clarity either kills the spiral or transforms it into real connection. Either way, the man stays in control. Here's the paradox. Women spiral over instability, but they stay for stability. They chase the cliffhanger, but they respect the anchor. The man who feeds addiction wins attention today. The man who ends the cycle earns respect tomorrow. Attention is cheap. Respect is rare. Which one do you want? So here's what you need to practice this week. When she spirals, don't spiral with her. Stay calm. When she pulls back, don't chase. Hold your frame. When she projects fantasies, don't act them out. Reveal just enough to stay real. That is your test. Each time you pass it, the system's grip on you weakens. And remember these quick wins. Don't text at midnight unless there's a real reason. Reply only when you have time, not when you feel anxious. If she invests 40%, you invest 40%, not 90%. Don't fake mystery, choose clarity. Because in this game, clarity will always be stronger than chaos. Most men still believe that winning a woman is about tricks. Send the sweet good morning text. Respond instantly. Plan the perfect date. But tricks are just performance, and performance collapses under pressure. Real strategy is not external, it's internal. It's not about manipulating her spiral. It's about refusing to feed it. The first strategy is cutting the dopamine loop. Random attention is toxic. Texting at midnight, disappearing the next day, then reappearing with a heart emoji. Men think that makes them mysterious. It doesn't. It makes them a drug dealer. And a dealer never earns respect. He only supplies the addiction until he's discarded. The second is to mirror investment, not fantasy. She may say, "I love when a man sends playlists." Most men overreact, sending 5 in a week. She invests 30%, he gives 90%, and the polarity collapses. Balance is law. If she invests 40, you invest 40. Nothing more, nothing less. Because imbalance doesn't create romance, it creates disrespect. The third is replacing reaction with direction. Imagine this. She pulls back. The average man panics, double texts, and begs for clarity. But the grounded man doesn't move from fear. He responds when he chooses, with purpose, not with reflex. She feels the difference immediately. One is desperation, the other is leadership. The fourth strategy is refusing to perform for her imagination. The projection trap is seductive. She believes you're a brooding genius. Most men lean into that role, but every projection collapses. And when it does, obsession turns into resentment. The antidote is honesty, not arrogance, but boundaries. I move slow. I'm here for real connection, not games. That either dissolves the spiral or reshapes it. Either way, you win. And here's the punchline. When you live this way, you stop competing entirely. The so-called bad boy who feeds her spiral isn't your rival. The nice guy who overinvests isn't your warning. You're playing a different game altogether. Because grounded men aren't compared, they're chosen. And if not chosen, they walk away without losing anything. So here's what you need to practice this week. Strip inconsistency out of your behavior. Don't breadcrumb her with random attention. Don't panic reply out of fear. Match her energy, not her words. And when projection shows up, don't act it out. Cut through it with clarity. Quick wins. Stop texting at random hours just to get a reaction. Only respond when you have genuine time, not when you're restless. If she invests lightly, don't flood her with effort. Balance is power. Hold steady even when silence feels uncomfortable. Because the man who stays consistent isn't just attractive, he's untouchable. This is the shift most men never make. But once you do, the spiral loses its grip, and the system that drained you suddenly has nothing left to feed on. Here's the truth no one wants to admit. You can memorize all the tactics. You can cut the dopamine loop, mirror her investment, and stop performing for her fantasy. But if inside you're still addicted to her reaction, you haven't escaped. You're still chained to the system, and the system will drain you. Most men think masculinity is about controlling women. The truth? Masculinity is about controlling yourself. A man who can't govern his own anxiety will always bend to hers. That's why chaos wins. Not because she's powerful, but because he is weak. He looks for stability in her moods instead of creating it within himself. That's dependency disguised as romance. So what's the deep shift? A man becomes whole before he enters the game. He builds direction that doesn't collapse when she goes silent. He builds values that don't dissolve when she withdraws. He builds a mission bigger than her spiral. When his center is strong, her chaos doesn't shake him. He becomes the anchor, not the addict. Think of it like gravity. Gravity doesn't chase. Gravity doesn't beg. It pulls everything into orbit without effort. That's what grounded masculinity feels like. Women spiral over instability, but they respect stability. They chase the cliffhanger, but they stay for the anchor. The man who bends gets temporary attention. The man who refuses gets lasting respect. Carl Jung said we project the unconscious onto others. That's exactly why women spiral. But here's the key. The antidote isn't to play along with her projection. It's to embody your own wholeness so deeply that projection bounces off. She can spiral or not spiral, project or not project. You remain. That's leadership. That's freedom. Most men still crave being unforgettable, but the more you chase that, the more forgettable you become. Because the man who needs attention is everywhere. The man who doesn't bend for it is rare. And rarity creates value. Not silence, not manipulation, but wholeness. And wholeness is the one thing she can't manufacture in her head. Here's what you need to practice this week. Stop checking her reactions as proof of your worth. Build one routine that grounds you regardless of her. Lift, write, work, create. Do it consistently until your peace feels heavier than her chaos. Because the man who can regulate himself becomes untouchable. And untouchable men don't spiral. Men need to stop lying to themselves. Romance, as it's sold today, isn't love. It's a casino. A system designed to keep women chasing chaos and men donating effort. She spirals not because you're special, but because her brain can't stand uncertainty. And you give her the cliffhanger. That's not intimacy. That's an engineered addiction. Look around. How many men pour energy into texting faster, planning harder, proving deeper, only to be ignored in a week? How many watch women obsess over men who barely speak, then flip from soulmate to block list in 3 days flat? This is not romance. This is recycling attention like a commodity. And men are the fuel. Science already exposed it. Intermittent reinforcement, random rewards, creates the strongest attachments. Casinos use it. Social media uses it. Modern dating uses it. Every LOL decoded, every delayed reply overanalyzed, every silence reinterpreted. It's all the same machine. She isn't in love. She's addicted, and you are her slot machine. But here's the shift. You don't have to play that role. You don't have to be her drug. You can be the antidote, the man who refuses to feed the loop, the man who holds frame when she spirals, the man whose stability is heavier than her chaos. That's the rarest man alive, and rarity is the only true power in this system. Most men want to be unforgettable. Wrong goal. The real victory is being unshakable, because obsession fades fast. But respect lasts. Women spiral over instability. They stay with stability. The cliffhanger hooks them today. The anchor grounds them tomorrow. Which one are you? Here's what you need to practice this week. Cut your dependency on her reaction. Don't check your phone waiting for her reply. Don't measure your worth by her attention. Build a life that's heavier than her spiral. Work on one thing daily that proves you can anchor yourself without her. Because the man who doesn't need the game is the only one who wins it. So stop chasing spirals. Stop confusing addiction with affection. Stop mistaking chaos for chemistry. The system is rigged, but when you choose wholeness over obsession, clarity over performance, and presence over panic, you collapse the scam from the inside. The question is simple. Will you keep being her slot machine, or will you finally become the antidote?